Nightwatch N8, your host of the Nightwatch Podcast. It has a ring to it, doesn't it, guys? Yeah, let's just get back to, let's just get straight down to business here. Trending on X today. I've been trying to limit my my time on, I guess they call it screen time. I've been trying to limit my time on some of these social media platforms, especially X lately, because it's just so damn time consuming, and the weather is just so damn nice lately. Yeah, it really does just suck. It's like you can get stuck in 100 different rabbit holes, just chasing one story after the next, and it can become like this huge, it's just this massive time waster, basically. And I don't have time. I don't have a whole lot of time lately. I've been kind of busy taking care of things at home, but I want every spare minute, every hour that I have to dedicate to my own content, right? I mean, that's the whole point of putting my face out here on social media. So yeah, it's like get too caught up in social media, following this tweet, following that tweet, following this sensational news headline after that, and eventually half the day is gone and you got no time left for your own little projects. And I've got, trust me, like I like to say, when you live in the projects, you gotta have a lot of projects, right? I don't really live in the projects, but I might as well, as much as I make, if not for the family property up here in the Rockies, I very well could be living in the ghetto. So I'm very thankful, of course, to my own mother this Mother's Day. And it's just, let me cut to the chase. Speaking of headlines, today, screaming from X was wouldn't you know it, the emulance clause. Once again, it's a topic that I've touched on in the past, primarily in the context of Trump, the Trump organization and his kids, the Trump boys who, haven't fell too far from the Trump tree. The latest story, what I've covered in the past is of course, Trump and his shitcoin, Trump coin, pumping that right before taking office, and his son Eric, through of course, the Trump organization buying cryptocurrency exchanges and becoming overnight, it seems, a Bitcoin evangelist. And all the little crypto cronies that Trump has surrounded himself and his cabinet, who are admittedly heavily invested. His Commerce Secretary, for instance, Howard Lutnick, admitted that he's invested hundreds of millions of dollars in Bitcoin. And meanwhile, they are influencing policy directly by Trump and his crypto summit or whatever he had at the White House. One of the things that I covered is how the crypto industry was, I think it was pretty much the largest lobbyist in the last election. Conveniently enough, they got Trump elected, right? And conveniently enough, he completely changed his tune, did a full 180 on his opinions of Bitcoin prior, to apparently being bought off. He thought it was a scam, which it is, of course, obviously, to anybody with half a brain who isn't also heavily invested and completely incapable of an unbiased, logical approach to understanding how this stuff works. So yeah, Howard Lutnick, this little crypto czar, all these people, the Commerce Secretary, I forgot the other guy's name. In any case, his cabinet is surrounded by these crypto cronies, and it just happens to be the crypto industry, which includes this Coinbase, which is the largest crypto exchange, at least in America. I'm not sure about the world. Probably damn near close to the world. It's one of the largest holders of Bitcoin, of course, as many of these centralized, more and more growingly centralized cryptocurrency exchanges are. And multiple times now, despite the rhetoric coming from Howard Lutnick, advising, what's his name, Pompanopoulos, I think his last name is, one of these long time, once again, evangelists, disciples of Satoshi. Something I covered on a previous podcast is how Howard Lutnick, who is invested, like I said, set to become a Bitcoin billionaire if he's not already, advising on Papadopoulos' podcast, advising him and his audience not to call Bitcoin a currency, guys.
The whole Bitcoin nation should just call it a commodity, never a currency. Just call it a commodity, because if it's a currency, you're attacking the politicians of the country, right? You're trying to replace my currency with yours.
Because you're going to tip off your politicians to the fact that this is actually a threat to their national fiat paper currencies, right? And despite this fact, the largest cryptocurrency exchange, Coinbase, who, was one of those donators to the Trump campaign, they've put out multiple commercials now. One of them they were airing during the, I think they might still be actually, during the NBA playoffs, describing Bitcoin as the future of money.
If a Bitcoin was the size of a quarter, all 21 million of them would fit inside a single shipping container. But to fit the dollars the Fed prints on average every day, you'd need 72 shipping containers. Each year, you'd need 26,280 containers. And to fit what they've printed in the last decade, well, you'd need a lot more than that.
So is Bitcoin or is Bitcoin not a currency or money? Same diff, right? That's the elephant in the room that nobody wants to discuss, it seems. Especially all of these heavily invested politicians, like Trump and his family, like his two boys. So if you can't see the connection there of a public official using his official office to enrich himself and his family, even if it is under the shell company of the Trump organization, right? It's not technically, and that's the argument right now. Like, so the latest I didn't get to yet, trending on Twitter was this Qatar royal family just gifting, just a free gift for Trump. Basically, it's going to be, I guess, from what I gather, the new Air Force One. Trump is complaining about the old Air Force One is this old, piece of junk. The president deserves something better, right? And so this is basically, they're describing it as a flying palace, just donated to Trump from the Qatar family. And of course, most everybody on the left is screaming, Emulance clause, this is a violation of the Constitution. You're not supposed to, according to the Constitution, guys. I know we're all like, all those MAGAs out there. You're real big on the Constitution, right? Right? Until it comes to your own golden calf. Once he gets in office, I guess the Constitution just is back to becoming a GD piece of paper, as George W. called it. But yeah, if anybody else was in office, this would be an issue to all the people that it should be an issue to, right? All the diehard MAGAs. You're not supposed to accept gifts in a public office, especially the office of POTUS, President of the United States, you're not supposed to accept any foreign gifts from any dignitaries, princes, kings, anybody involved in any other foreign government, right? Just on basic common sense. Do you want your leaders in political offices to serve we the people, or to serve, the highest bidder? And essentially, that's what we have now with this disgusting piece of filth. I'm real tired of holding my tongue, and people out there know that I'm not very good at it, so I'm not even going to try anymore at this point. Trump is basically the cheapest hooker for globalist interests. That's what he has demonstrated. That's who he is. He hasn't changed his ways. He hasn't had some kind of a road to Damascus moment where he came to God after supposedly being shot, strafed by the ear in that WWE performance of a faked assassination attempt, which nobody that I hear anyway, including Trump, is calling for any real in-depth investigation into, right? How did this kid get as far as he did? Who even is this kid? Do we know anything about this kid who shot him? Anything, guys? A kid that young just popped up on a BlackRock commercial. Who is this poor kid? Another patsy, obviously. No social media presence, really? A kid? Really? Is that a thing? Is that even possible for kids these days? Not to be on social media? But, in any case, so your hero, yes, MAGA, your modern day, I guess, George Washington, founding father material, should have his face up there on Mount Rushmore, is basically the cheapest hooker that the globalists could stick in the office of president of the White House, who will accept bribes and donations from just about any outside interest, and in effect do the bidding of all these outside interests over and above we the people. I mean, we should have known this. He pretty much demonstrated that, didn't he, with Pfizer, right? When you're willing to throw your own people, the American people, into the slaughterhouse for a little bit of profit from Big Pharma, guys. I mean, that should be an indicator of the guy's character.
Presidential candidates, whether it's Obama or President Trump or Biden, come into office saying, I'm going to get rid of the swamp. I'm going to get rid of the corruption. But then they get in there and something happens. Trump got in there saying, I'm going to get rid of the swamp. He asked me to be on a vaccine safety commission. When that news got out, Pfizer gave him $1 million for the inauguration, and then for his inaugural party. And then he appointed two of Pfizer's lobbyists, Scott Gottlieb and Alex Azar, to run HHS, and they killed the Vaccine Safety Commission, and then Gottlieb went to serve on Pfizer's board. That is the swamp.
And like I said, he hasn't had some coming to God moments where he's changed his ways, and now he's this religious figure like the delusional conservative right would like to paint him. He's still doing the same thing he's done his whole life, which is, shady mafia type deals that just ingratiate himself, make himself all that more filthy rich, and his family, right? And so now he's getting away with it because Eric Trump is running the Trump organization. He's running around making deals. And this $400 million airliner from the Qatar family, tell me it has nothing to do with his, I think it's like a $5.5 billion golf course deal with the Qatar family. Yeah, this golf resort. And this isn't the only one, guys. And there's also deals between Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, and the Qatar family, royal family. And it's like, how does this guy get away with it? Because the Supreme Court, majority Catholic, by the way, the one sitting Protestant, supposedly Episcopalian, I think he is, Gorsuch. Funny enough, when I looked him up, this is for a different podcast I'm working on. I'm actually diving a little deeper into the Pope and the influence of the Jesuits on our country historically, so it's going to be a pretty in-depth podcast. Keep an eye out for that one. It's just going to take time. All this stuff takes a huge amount of time, and I don't get anything in return for it, so I hope everybody out there appreciates it enough to at least like my videos and, I don't know, maybe share them. If you can't donate me a coffee or two, at least that's the least you could do, guys. These podcasts take a ton of time and research, and that's what I've been doing over the last week, is just researching this latest podcast. In light of the recent American Pope, which any of my students of prophecy out there should automatically, your little antennas should perk up, and should see the prophetic significance of an American Pope. The Vatican has always been a Eurocentric organization. That's where its power base is in Europe. Of course, she rides on the 10-headed beast, which was the 10 kingdoms that came out of the fall of Rome. All the different countries that made up Europe, the different tribes that turned into the different countries, like the Germans, the French, the Anglos, English. In any case, that's a totally different topic. That's something to hold off for the next deep dive podcast. But yeah, so apparently, according to the Grok I looked up just in research for that project, the one Protestant left on this still Protestant majority, by the way, country, the one Protestant left on the Supreme Court he's not really a Protestant at all, because he was raised Catholic, and according to Grok, at least, Elon's AI, I've just been kind of bouncing back and forth ideas very skeptically with Grok lately, and I'm learning more and more to not have any trust in its answers without doing my own due diligence and fact-checking, basically, the fake AI fact-checkers. But according to the first reply from Grok, he wasn't Jesuit educated. And then I pry him again and I ask, what other members of the Supreme Court are Jesuit educated? And right there at the top pops up, Neil Gorsuch, Jesuit educated. So for whatever reason, Grok was lying to me the first time he answered my question. But obviously Neil Gorsuch is a fake Protestant by any other name. And of course, anybody that knows the history of the Jesuits should know that they are masters at being chameleons, right? Taking on the persona or the image of any person, any type of group that they see fit. Of course, obviously, something as simple as Democrat or Republican, they don't care about party affiliation. Their sole purpose as the army of the Vatican, as the espionage, spy network that they are, their sole purpose is to restore papal supremacy to the world. And something interesting that I'm diving into in this podcast is the fact that pretty much all of the founding fathers realized this. And, inspired by some of the Enlightenment thinkers like John Locke, they all knew to be wary of Catholics in general, and especially, the Jesuits. John Adams, the second president, basically said that if any group of men should ever warrant the fires of hell, basically, to paraphrase, it was the Society of Loyola, the Jesuits. And so when we have the Supreme Court with the 66% majority Catholic Supreme Court, not one real Protestant, giving the president, the office of POTUS, giving Donald Trump in particular, complete legal immunity from prosecution while in office or after he leaves office. Of course, that's going to leave open the door for corruption, right? Blatant, in-your-face violations of our Constitution. Even though everybody on the right, all the MAGAs at least, the brainwashed sheep that they are, that will excuse anything, including, I'm sure, this latest gift from the Qatar family. That's got nothing to do with the ambulance clause, right, guys? That's totally different because it's Trump. The one demographic of people that should be holding their leaders to the fire when it comes to violations of the Constitution, predictably are sitting on their hands with their lips zipped because it's their little golden calf, their messiah. And now maybe you're starting to see the role of Trump more and more clearly is to win over the favor of the people who should be the most on guard, right? For a corrupt, unconstitutional, globalist, by the way, government, led out by Mr. MAGA, Make America Great Again. Yeah, my ass, guys, my ass. You guys can keep making all the excuses you want, but you're full of SHIT, and everybody pretty much knows it who isn't, continually puffing on the hopium or the copium pipe, Patriot hopium pipe, and sipping on that MAGA red Kool-Aid. And the more and more you connect yourself with this Judas figure, this Benedict Arnold, such as the country has never seen, the more and more credibility I hope and I know that you will one day lose completely by associating yourself, by tying yourself to this traitor of the Republic. And so yeah, the Supreme Court gives him complete legal immunity despite all the MAGAs sighing and crying and whining about how persecuted poor little baby Trump is. He comes out, as he always has, the Teflon Don, and a few people like myself called it. All the show trials were just that. They were never intended to amount to anything. Trump was never going to see any jail time. Trump was going to come out better off than he was before. And wouldn't you know it, after his little crypto ventures, after all these little backroom deals, how much richer do you think Trump is going to be, guys, after leaving the White House a second term? He's already at least doubled his net worth from 2016 when he first ran. Despite all the myth, this self-sacrificing savior mythology that people created, that Trump was just setting all of his interest aside. He could be making so much more money just running all of his amazing businesses, but he's decided to step down from such a lofty height and take on such a lowly position as the White House, to humble himself to be the president of the United States, right? The irony of that statement still evades me, the logic somehow. I don't get, a person like Trump who has worshipped his own ego his entire life, worshipped the things of this world. Like I said, where's the conversion, guys? In my mind, he's more of a, what did the one religious leader liken him to? A Constantine. Yeah, exactly. With all this obsession lately from influential people like Elon Musk, put out another tweet today about something about thinking of Rome, and he's sitting there in front of some white Roman statue with his son on his shoulders as usual, like his little monkey that he likes to parade around, to look probably I'm pretty sure the PR guys, once all the left started waking up to his overweight influence that he had in politics, despite the fact nobody elected the guy. I'm sure his PR guys got to him and said, you know what, you got a really cute little kid there, X, I think he called him for some stupid reason, X. You got a really cute little boy there. You should, parade him around on your shoulders, and you'll look that less intimidating, right? You'll look that less of a monster when you're hiding behind a cute little kid.
If you have received billions of dollars in contracts from the Pentagon, and the president's directing you to look into the Department of Defense, is that a conflict of interest?
Are going to do at the president's request.
Does that present a conflict of interest for you?
No, because you'd have to look at the individual contract and say, first of all, I'm not the one, filing the contract. It's people at SpaceX or someone who will be putting for the contract. And I'd like to say, if you see any contract where where it was awarded to SpaceX and it wasn't by far the best value for money for the taxpayer, let me know.
Mr. Musk, what is Doge? What is Doge?
Elon, do you want to see Democrats here?
Mr. Musk! Mr. Musk, will you answer a question?
But yeah, this whole concept that Trump, Constantine. Trump is more like a Constantine. With the obsession lately with Rome, Elon Musk repeatedly just keeps tweeting out about how great Rome is and how America's the new Rome. And his latest one with his son looking at the statue, I'm not exactly sure what he meant by it. It's some kind of a game reference, because he's such a gamer. He just sits around. He's got all the time in the world to just sit around gaming. Give me a second, I'll be right back. That a beauty, guys? Estes Park, Colorado. Anyway, I had to grab some water back there. I'm on water duty again, the water boy. Got a haul. I think I'm hauling about 400 gallons of water right now behind me. And the well pump went out on the house, so we're not sucking any water from our shallow well. Can't pronounce it lately. We are not sucking any water from our shallow well right now, which never really amounted to much in the first place, but it's really noticeable lately, and it's going to be even more and more noticeable when we have to start watering all the plants. And another series to look out for, my longtime night watchers out there, loyal listeners and viewers. I still plan on releasing some more of the Doomsday Garden series on trying to help people get more prepared, more independent from the beast system. Because ultimately, we can obsess and worry all we want about the everything wrong in the world, but until we, get our hands dirty and start working towards making things better for ourselves and our own families. We have the Trump family, and they're pretty much well off, right? They're pretty much set. You gotta love the irony. Let me just get back to Trump for a second here. One of my favorite topics, as many of you know, and that's because he's a fake, and that's because everything he's a false prophet. Everything that he says, he works against. And so I guess I kind of style myself as a bit of a watchman on the wall when I see a liar and the deceiver, and I see so many good people, so many otherwise genuine, good old boys, right? Whom, by the way, I relate to probably more than anybody. But I probably make a lot of enemies because they've turned, the Golden Dawn into their little golden calf. And that's the problem. People associate their own interests, their own egos. They make these politicians an extension of who they are, who they identify as. And we all remain infighting with each other, while these billionaires in high offices could give a shit less, basically. You know, they wouldn't give us a minute of their time, you know, unless it made them look better, benefited themselves in the public eye somehow, right? So yeah, the irony of Donald Trump recently with his tariffs, when asked about, you know, will prices go up? You think legacy media that just covers for whoever's in office and whatever agenda is the you know, expedient for the globalist interest? Do you think that all these tariffs might affect us consumers, Mr. President? Well, you know, he just kind of snidely remarked that, yes, you know, instead of having 30 dolls, you're going to have to buy your little daughters only 3 dolls. And in another instance of that same interview, I think it was on 60 Minutes or something like that, one Sunday night. I missed the full interview myself, but I caught some clips of it. In another instance, he talked about how we'll have to have less pencils. Pencils, guys.
You said, quote, I'm going to quote what you said, maybe the children will have 2 dolls instead of 30 dolls.
Yeah.
And maybe the 2 dolls will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. Are you saying that your tariffs will cause some prices to go up?
No, I think the tariffs are going to be great for us because it's going to make us rich.
But you said some dolls are going to cost more. Isn't that an acknowledgement that some prices will go up?
I don't think a beautiful baby girl that's 11 years old needs to have 30 dolls. I think they can have 3 dolls or 4 dolls because what we were doing with China was just unbelievable. We had a trade deficit of hundreds of billions of dollars with China.
When you say they could have 3 dolls instead of 30 dolls, are you saying Americans could see empty store shelves?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they don't need to have 30 dolls. They can have 3. They don't need to have 250 pencils. They can have 5.
Like, that's our biggest concern as average American citizens. How many pencils can we buy? No, most people that I know that are, you know, lower middle to basically peasant class, like I am basically, their biggest concern is, can we afford groceries? Can we afford to pay the bills? I know this is a completely foreign concept to somebody like Donald Trump and all of his snotty little kids, because they have known nothing but luxury as the aristocrats that they are their whole lives. Oh, Donald Trump made himself. No, Donald Trump got a big fat check from his corrupt real estate father who was in bed with the New York mafia. And it sure pays to have those family ties, doesn't it? It sure pays to be Jesuit educated too. That's another thing that popped up in my research on this latest podcast is, wouldn't you know it, if you had a wild guess, right? Like, how many people do you know in your life that went to a Jesuit college? Just off the top of your head. And, you know, based on the demographics of the country, with Catholics making up something like a quarter of the population now, you know, once again, conveniently with all the influx of all the Catholic migrants coming across the border from the most highest Catholic populated region on the planet, South America. And I know a lot of you guys probably don't understand the context of why it's important to know somebody's religion, who they are ultimately, who their allegiances, where their allegiances lie. But it's kind of an important deal, right? And the Roman Catholic Church understands this. You know, I hear other influencers. One of them was Candace Owens' husband, who's a Catholic, who, you know, was working on Candace for a while, as he admitted in different interviews, and until she converted. You know, she was one of these that said, we have a pope, when the new pope was elected, and my reply was, who's we? I don't have a pope. I don't need a pope. We have one high priest in heaven. That's the true Christian gospel, and no man takes the place of God, as the popes in the past have repeatedly claim that they take on the prerogatives. They literally depict themselves as Peter, the successor, the first turd in the punch bowl. The first pope is Peter, even though there's nothing biblical about it. There's no evidence to back up that claim. They literally picture Peter with the two keys, one to heaven and one to hell, because that's how much power God has imbued in the fallen, corrupt, sinful man. And no better example than the latest pope, who used his Augustine order to, wouldn't you know it, harbor and shelter more child predator priests. It gets old after a while, doesn't it, guys? Like, how many of these people in positions of power need to be involved in child abuse? And another example of a Grok's bias, this AI of Elon. Another example was when I had to twist its arm, basically, to admit to me that the Catholic Church has more child abuse victims on its hands, based on the known statistics, known on the court cases, the broadly accepted estimates, how many children that organization of the Vatican, the Catholic Church, is responsible for abusing. By its estimates, by Grok's estimates, right? Which, like I said, originally Grok tried to dispute my claim that the Vatican is the world's foremost child trafficking network, the largest child trafficking network on Earth. It first denied that claim until I kept prying it for information, and then it eventually conceded. Wouldn't you know it? Yes. Even more than the Boy Scouts of America. It tried to use Boy Scouts of America as a potential rival in this hypothetical fight between the Vatican and the Boy Scouts of America. Too bad the numbers that they gave me didn't add up. And the Boy Scouts of America had a fraction of abuse cases reported. And my other question was, a Catholic organization, which it admitted earlier on in the conversation, this was a long drawn out conversation I won't get into, but it admitted that a lot of the abuse claims are not claimed. A lot of the abuses are not claimed because they're in these third world countries. And where did the new Pope come from? Oh, it was Peru, where they were doing missionary work, right? Yes, missionary work. I guess that's one way to describe it, without getting into too many graphic details. I'm sure he was involved in lots of missionary work over there in Peru, and I'm sure they did their best to cover up any kind of, like he is known for, covering up placing child predator priest right next to little Catholic schools, even years after they were, victims came out to accuse them of their wrongdoings. Here's your Holy Father, guys. It's sickening, and it should disgust any real Christian who has any real principle for morals, any moral standards whatsoever. In any case, off the Pope, back to Trump, the guy who pictured himself as the Pope. A lot of people took offense at that, I guess. Not a lot, but a few Catholics, and a lot of people just thought he was trolling. In my mind, he was kind of, consider this, that he put that out prior to the very first in history American Pope being elected as pontiff. Was Trump signaling something? Is Trump kind of, warming up his supporters to the idea of more and more church-state involvement? Something that my podcast is going to be all about here pretty soon, guys, because it's if you don't see the historical significance of an American Pope and all of the gestures that Trump has been making towards Catholicism in particular, but religion in general within politics, in light of some of the warnings from the Founding Fathers and the great thinkers that crafted our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, Declaration of Independence, if you don't know our history, which most people don't, then I guess we're all doomed to repeat it. And ultimately, as much as I kick and fuss against this stuff, as a student of prophecy myself, I see fulfillment of prophecy just in this American Pope, the significance of that. And like I said, some of the recent statements from Trump, saying things like, I'm not sure about that whole separation of church and state thing. Is that real? Is that even a thing?
They say separation between church and state, they told me. I said, all right, let's forget about that for one time. We said, really, the separation? I don't know. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'm not sure. But whether there's separation or not, you guys are in the White House where you should be, and you're representing our country, and we're bringing religion back to our country.
Thoughts like that from a political office were unthinkable, guys, just 100 years ago, okay? That was considered treason. You would be considered a traitor, tar and feathered, and at the very least removed from political office by an angry mob, okay? But that's how far this country has fallen from, first of all, an understanding of history and an awareness of just how diabolical that institution is, the papacy, and an awareness of their doctrines, and ultimately what motivates people who sit on the Supreme Court who are devout practicing Catholics. Where did their allegiances lie when the head of their church, the world's biggest cult, when the head of the Roman Catholic Church, the pontiff, the sovereign pontiff, who sits as a monarch, what do they call it, a complete monarchy over there in Rome. He's his own monarch, the head of his own theocracy, meaning that nobody can question what the Pope does or says. There are no checks and balances in the Vatican, guys. And if you believe in a religion like that, you might be a Catholic just by association, your family, in name only. But if you understand the Catholic religion to its core, then you have to realize that the Pope is the head of the church. What does the head do in the body? It directs the church. And that's why early popes, like Pope Pius IX, this is another one of these that I touch on in my upcoming podcast. That's why they saw the separation of church and state, the Establishment Clause in the First Amendment, whatever you want to call it, they saw that as a heresy, because it's the duty of the church, which I think was Pius, described the church and the state as two different swords. They work hand in hand, they work together, but ultimately, according to the Pope steers the state. And this is enshrined in papal doctrine. This is not just something that, that's an old antiquated thought that, the Vatican's changed. Rome never changes. That's part of her, that's part of what makes Rome who she is. She takes on the prerogatives of God, and God is never wrong, right? God never errs. So anyway, that's a whole different theological debate. It's just something that's been, like I said, ruminating in my mind because I've been researching this over the last week. The primary subject was Trump and his emulants and, just the MAGAs and how they will make up every excuse in the world for this guy. And like he openly admitted, think of the arrogance of Trump to say that he can in broad daylight shoot somebody and his supporters will still vote for him. That's the level of loyalty, of blind cult-like faith his supporters have in him, and he realizes it. And so, by the way, does the, call them what you will, the deep state, the oligarchs, the New World Order, the globalists. Who's ever really in power behind the curtain pulling the strings, which we know prophetically, of course, the oldest institution on the planet, the Vatican, is ultimately on the very tip top of the pyramid. But yeah, who is ever pulling the strings realized they had a good thing in Trump. They realized his one talent, he might not be the smartest man, he might not be the best businessman in the world, right? Didn't he like bankrupt several casinos? I think he was even called the bankruptcy king at one point. And a lot of people like Peter Schiff have speculated on whether he's planning on bankrupting America. Well, it sure looks that way based on the spending, despite all the Doge talk, cleaning up government waste. Trump is still requesting another, $1.5 billion in Pentagon spending, cranking it up to like $1 trillion now for military spending in this country. Something that, when a puppet in power, that a puppet POTUS, when he can't touch the military budget, when he can't touch the Pentagon, he's a good puppet, guys, right? Right? You don't touch the wallet of the Pentagon. You don't touch her little purse strings, do you? You got to keep that war machine going, don't you? Because America is, after all, like Elon Musk likes to refer to us as the new Rome, which is prophetically the breakers, the crushers of thy people, God's people, the beast with iron teeth. Ruthless. And the pit bull of the New World Order, basically, is another way America has been described. They need to keep up their military. So we have the three different obelisks, right? We have the St. Peter's Square, the obelisk in Rome, the head of religion, worldwide church, Catholic meaning universal church. We have the obelisk in England, the head of finance, banksters, the money lenders. And then you have the obelisk in Washington, D.C., the monument, the head of the military-industrial complex for this New World Order. They always like throwing their symbols in your face, guys, and if you're paying attention whatsoever in the slightest, you should know your enemy when you spot them. The papacy doesn't hold back, right? It countless times depicts itself for who she is. The Scarlet Harlot on 7 Hills. I think you can still search Google, what's the city on 7 Hills, and it'll still pop up as Rome, guys. It's not a big mystery. There's a lot of these little prophetic markers that, they all describe one particular institution, and it can fit no other. So look no farther to the papacy and America, the lamb-like beast. And this is something that I've covered in previous shows, but I hope to expound on once I get more time. I know I've taken probably too much of your time already, guys. But happy Mother's Day, all the mothers out there. I can picture no greater sacrifice, I guess, other than what Jesus said, to lay down your own life for your own friends. No greater sacrifice other than that than what a mother does, right? And the suffering of childbirth. The end times are likened to a mother in travail with child and birth pangs, right? Closer and closer you get to birth. Of course, only mothers really know this. So who am I to preach or teach on the topic? But this is just from what I read. The closer you get to birth of this second coming in the context of prophecy, the closer and closer the birth pangs get, right? And we're seeing more and more. I mean, wars and rumors of wars, disasters in diverse places, all the things that Jesus warned us about. And right now we see the alignment of the lamb-like beast and the former beast that was wounded by the sword of the Reformation. The lamb-like beast, we are told, will shortly make an image. He will enforce false worship to the first beast of Rome. So when you see Donald Trump making all these gestures, talking about more and more involvement of religion in the state. It sure looks like time is short, guys. Like, things are getting real, if you know what I mean. All you students of prophecy out there have been paying attention, who know some of the keys in Bible prophecy. This should light a fire under all of us and get us all a little bit more serious, or a lot more serious. First of all, getting right with God, turning from our wicked ways, repenting, and as much as within our power, just getting prepared financially, getting out of debt. If you can at all, start saving, or if you can right now afford a place, a piece of property, even if it's just a barren piece of property that you can later begin building on. That's what our plan is, and we haven't made too much headway lately because we don't have a whole lot of income coming in. The cost of living is ridiculous, and yeah, like Trump says, the White House, they need to build a new ballroom, a new luxury ballroom in the White House. He needs a new flying palace for Air Force One, but all of us, we need to deal with fewer dolls and pencils, right, guys? If you can't see the irony in that statement, the, Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake, kind of snobbish disregard for the lower classes. If you can't see or get some French Revolution vibes from that comment, and you're not paying close enough attention to history and history being reanimated right in front of us, and prophecy being fulfilled as well. I don't know how much longer people will put up with it, guys, until there are some major riots. We saw a little taste, I think, during the Summer of Love. Before some of these people, God forbid, right, like the Trump family, face some guillotines. Might not be that much further on down the road, guys. And in that case, you don't want to be in the big cities. You want to be as far away from all that chaos as possible. There's food shortages. You want to be growing your own food if possible. So that's one of the things that we're still working on. Like I said, we're still trying to perfect growing up here in the Rockies. It's not an easy thing. It's continually a struggle, but we're starting to learn some of the plants that we should and should not even try to plant. And number one on the list, just a little spoiler for the probably what's going to be the first episode of the new installment, at least, of the Doomsday Garden series. Potatoes, the humble spud, as the number one top survival, easiest to grow produce, especially up here in high elevation. Anyway, God bless everybody. Thanks for listening to my rambles. I know it's been probably a long talk, and just appreciate everybody out there who's willing to put up with my nonsense, and hopefully you gain something from my insight, from my own research, from my own understanding of God's word. And I still believe that God is speaking to his people, and sometimes we just have to shut things off. Again, sorry for all the noise, but again, we have to just shut things off, like the social media. Get out into nature, get out into God's creation, and just listen for that still small voice, and God will guide our paths. And even if we're not capable of being completely off the grid and self-sufficient, self-sustaining, which I don't know anybody who is 100%, even if we're not capable of getting there completely, we can still have trust in God that he will protect his people. He will be with us no matter what kind of trials we face, and if necessary, he will send the ravens to feed us, right? If we're out in the wilderness running from the mad mobs, and we're starving. So have faith in God, because pretty shortly here, guys, there's not going to be too much else to have faith in. The political system, everything, the financial institutions, the world economy. You know, we hear about the ship masters out at sea. Similar things we've actually witnessed during COVID, and right now on the West Coast, the shipping ports are in large part grinding to a halt. In the book of Revelation, right before the burning of the city on 7 hills, classically known as Rome, from God's judgment, we are told that the economy will come crashing down, and all the merchants will be weeping and wailing because nobody buys their merchandise anymore. And that to me sounds like a global economic collapse. And it happens in 1 hour. So that's interesting to think about. Yeah, if you get the entire economy based on cryptocurrency, digital money, that's really not too far off, guys. That's not a that's not a stretch to imagine that the entire world economy can crash within the period of an hour. Once it's on these often chaotic cryptocurrencies. Anyway, God bless. I'll leave you all with a nice view of the mountains. Almost back home. I appreciate everybody out there. God bless once again, and God bless once again. This is Nightwatch N8. Appreciate everybody out there. Until next time, signing out.